was the hottest day in August. We were heading for the sea. For a second my mind started drifting. You put your arms around me.
Jens Lekman is a Swedish singer-songwriter and musician. He started releasing his own creations privately between 2000 and 2003, and he released his first album in 2004 and has released 6 more since. Through the year 2015, he released a free song each week, each titled Postcard and numbered 1 to 25. Also in that year, he ran an experiment where people would send him stories and he would turn them into songs. And I believe those tracks are also free on his website. Hi, my name's Dan, and this is a review of the album Night Falls over Kortedala, might be pronounced wrong, by Jens Lekman, which is an album released in 2007 and was his second album. It's apparently a compilation of recordings made between 2004 and 2007. It's my first encounter with him, so I've not heard this album before the listens that I've done for this review. I would describe this probably as modern Baroque pop. I think there's maybe subtle distinctions between Baroque pop and chamber pop, and I think it's in the size of the backing. So Acclaimed Music have said chamber pop, but I'm going to say Baroque. So what I mean by Baroque pop is, and what I think most people mean by that is, it's kind of orchestra-backed pop. So a big kind of, it was a big thing in the 70s particularly, maybe in the 60s also, but people like Tom Jones and Neil Diamond and maybe Barry Manilow to some extent. These people were very in my head at the time, because I was in my what was I in my coming into my teens, halfway through the 70s. This was parent music, and so was something that I wasn't particularly interested in generally, but there was a lot of popularity for this sort of stuff at times. I would say this album, so Jens Lekman, reminds me of Scott Walker, who did a lot of stuff in this style, but has a bit more of an interesting or weird edge to it, or Rufus Wainwright, who is more recent, but is in this kind of style somewhat. Excuse me. However, having said that, the album as a whole gives that impression, but actually when you listen to individual tracks, it's not all that. And some of the tracks are less orchestry and more bandy, and those albums tend to sound like, again, quite 70s, like light pop from the 70s, except with, of course, more modern production and bits that slow down or speed up. By that I mean kind of, the sound as if you've got an old-fashioned tape and you're going, or speeding up and stuff. So it's got some things that kind of jar the ear on purpose. Not a lot of those, but some of those. Part of the kind of Baroque pop thing also, though, is the nature of his voice, which has got this big, strong, clear voice, which is quite lifted up high in the mix. You can imagine some of these songs being sung by people like Tom Jones, Andy Williams, something like that. That's my frog. So the focus here, though, after talking about that, is the songwriting, which is curious songwriting. It's about everyday situations, and you feel like some of these are personal experiences. So there's one about pretending to be the boyfriend for a lesbian friend in front of her parents. There's one about a trip to the beach with his sister. There's one about cutting the tip off of his finger. There's one about having a haircut. And it's all kind of mundane stuff, but all done in quite a romantic way. And the way it's approached is kind of elevating these things. And in some ways, it reminded me of that song MacArthur Park, which is a song that big, grandiose song, and it's all about a cake. And it's which is hilarious, by the way. I love that song. And it's so this is done with lots of references to everyday things in a way that's quite jarring. Makes it sound negative. It's not. It's done deliberately, but it overturns the feeling of what is normal for songs of this kind of size, and that reference to kind of modern and everyday stuff reminds me of, well, particularly of Morrissey, I think, but also Jarvis Cocker and Pulp, and it's kind of like it's pop folk, but it's not really folk. It's more kind of, oh dear, what's the word? Heartland, but every day. It's not even heartlandy. It's just kind of about the mundanity of life in a way that elevates it. Um, Sometimes it doesn't scan or rhyme. Sometimes the rhymes are used to give one of those little jolts because it rhymes with a word that is something you weren't expecting. But that might be scissors or something. I'm not sure that that's actually an example, but I'm trying to give you the feel that it's something that might be unusual. So the end result of this is actually quite an unusual album. Musically, it's quite approachable, but does have this kind of somewhat dated feel to it, deliberately. Um, but I found it a decent listen. I quite enjoyed it, as you'll see from the score. But especially, it was the songwriting that elevated it for me. It made it more interesting. If the songs had been dull, this would have been a considerably lower mark for this album. So that's what I think of this. As always, I'd love to know what you think. So will you let me know that, please, by leaving me a comment in the comments box down there. And that's it from me for now.
Do you remember your first kiss? Well, how can I forget? My hands still shiver from the very